welcome to the presentation of Lanfranco Aceti. I have met Lanfranco in Cyprus this year, and it was a delight talk. Everybody from the audience, we were dancing that day, I have to say. So when Lanfranco told me that he's going to come here, we were all so glad to organize that talk. Lanfranco is an artist and curator. He's the visiting professor in the Goldsmith College, editor-in-chief of Leonardo Electronic Almanac. He's also artistic director and conference chair for ISEA 2011.
Yeah.
He has exhibited his work in main institutes like ACA London, Tate Modern, Venice Biennale, Museum of Modern Art, Irish one. So what can I say? Today he's going to speak about the crisis, about the cuts, the problems that everybody we are having right now, and we're trying to survive as an artist.
Yes.
So, with no more delay, I'm giving you Lanfranco Aceti.
Okay, thank you so much. It is a delight to be here, and thank you for taking the time. I have to say, as you probably have noticed, I have prepared this very, very beautiful presentation with all these very beautiful images, all nicely and neatly organized, and my USB drive failed. Most of the stuff is available online, so I decided just to put online a series of pages, and you will be able to see. About 2 years ago, in the end of 2011, I decided that it was probably a good idea to start an initiative and to open up a new museum. Most of you know that there are all different sorts of institutions around the world. And I thought, well, this museum should celebrate the cuts, should discuss what the word cut means. So I started with an etymological analysis of what is the word cut. And it is basically, in its inherent meaning, it is a maiming, which means it is a destruction of something. We were talking before about Erich Fromm. In a book of Erich Fromm, there is a beautiful story, and it's the story about a goddess. It's a Babylonian myth, and it's about the history of matriarchy. It looks at the idea of maternity as something that cannot be challenged. So one of the gods, of the sons of the Great Mother, decides to challenge her. And all the brothers and sisters are unsure if to follow him. So in order to show them that he has power, that there is power in this male god, what he does, he takes a piece of fabric, a sheet, and he cuts it in half. And then he shows them the two halves that come back together. And so what they decided to do then is to kill the Great Mother and crown him as the new god. I think if we move away from the Babylonian myth and we look at what is happening within contemporary society, the word cut, from a negative connotation, is being presented to us today as something that can save our societies. Recently, just 4 or 5 days ago, I have read an article that said that in Greece there were 4.2 million people that were living below the level of poverty. That's a number. You don't know the stories. You don't see the people. You don't see the faces. You don't see anything. And great historical events came back to my mind, which were at the origin of this project that is called the Museum of Contemporary Cuts. Why great events that determine the upheaval and destructions of entire parts of society. Imagine the famine in Ireland, when hundreds of thousands of people left Ireland and moved towards the United States of America. Imagine what happened during the Industrial Revolution with the fencing in Great Britain. People had to move from the countryside into the slums of the cities. Of all of this, you do not have the narratives, you do not have the stories of the people, you do not have the tragedies. The only thing that you have are the numbers. And I think that is not good enough. I do not think that we can describe with a few numbers what is actually happening within our societies. Cut means slashing, means division, it means tearing apart. It does not have a positive meaning. And I find it very, very difficult, the idea that by cutting different things like health services, education, by cutting all different sorts of aspects of our society, of what should be our society, will save us. And I mean us, those people that do believe still in the concept of society. The discourse becomes even more complex because today we're looking at what is a postmodern state, or we're looking at a post-capitalistic society. Recently, Margaret Thatcher died. She said, it's not a correct quote, there has been many different interpretations and there are some discussions, nevertheless, it is something that is attributed to her, that there is no such a thing as a society. Today in Britain, the Conservative government proposes the idea of big society. We have a responsibility, we have to participate for free in this society that has no responsibility towards us. When we're talking about cuts, we see all different sorts of issues. But one of the things that I have failed to see, and I'm going to be talking mainly in this case about the Italians and the government in Italy, what I have failed to see, for example, is the reduction of the MPs' salaries. I have failed to see, for example, the Italian state pays pensions of 30,000 euros per month, okay, to ex-prime ministers, civil servants, judges. I haven't seen a cut on those pensions. I haven't seen a cut in the corruption. I haven't seen a change in the strategy that the society as a whole has adopted. While at the same time, there is a continuous discourse that people with disability, people that are unemployed, people that have already and continue to contribute quite a lot to our society, and we're talking about the lower and middle classes, they have to give more. And they have to be cut more. We have to cut all different sorts of aspects of our lives, our free time. 50 years ago, a family could be raised in the United States of America by one person working. Today, two people working, each one of them 2 jobs, barely makes it. So there are some serious structural problems, and there are some serious, and I know that all of this seems not to have anything to do with art. And we were talking at the University of Westminster, and I said, well, actually, probably we should become politicians, or we should become scientists, we should become different people. And we should become different people probably because we do care about what is the vision of the future. What are the things that we want our state and our society to represent in the future? So I thought that perhaps a museum that would document with exhibitions, artists, talks, and interventions, all of these difficulties that are happening, it will be something that will allow the opportunities for different stories to come out. I'm going to show you a few images going through a few of the project. Hopefully, we're going to be able to show the different things. We did several projects. One, we opened with the first one, and then we did one by Bill Balaska, which was called The Vision of the Market. The museum works in this way, works in collaboration with Casa Gallery, which is a gallery in Istanbul. It works in collaboration with the Goldsmiths College. And we wanted to do something that is both physical and virtual, something that travels between the two different platforms. So there was an intervention with an installation in London at the Royal College of Art. There was a physical exhibition in Casa Gallery that was called The Market Will Save the World. And the artwork, the main artwork of the artist, was called The Market Will Save Us. And it appeared as a full-page intervention on Frieze magazine as well, on an issue of Frieze magazine as well. You have to forgive me, but I'll go to the very end in order to show you. Basically, this is the curatorial statement, the exhibition, and etc. And here, you can actually see the image of the Royal College, the facade of the Royal College of Art covered with this banner. I would not say that it was an easy artwork. It had its problematics. And one of them, which we thought that was actually very interesting, it was related to the fact that some people read the phrase literally. So there is an interpretation of the phrase as actually a literal thought. And to me, the lack of understanding of the sarcasm behind it, when we're thinking about institution, when we're talking about education, today we're talking about the private education that affords the possibility of entering within certain kind of circles of costing £27,000 a year. I would like to know who can afford to pay those fees. Personally, I do not know anyone in my circle of friends that would be able to pay for their sons or daughters £27,000 in order to receive a degree released from the RCA. So the problems are, in my opinion, political problems in the sense of the old Greek word. Today, to speak about politics, it is something dirty. I even feel dirty in mentioning the word, but it is about our society, our cities, our ways of living. And the talk is about the idea of what should we do? Should we give up? Should we go with the flow? Or should we try to find ways of reacting? I have to say that for me, for this particular project, because this is a project that is very dear to me, I have discovered that there are ways of doing large projects, large interventions, and etc. by collaborating. I did several talks in different times, and I say that this crisis will create us, will give us other very good opportunities to develop, collaborate, develop new projects, and etc. Or people that will stand divided, they will disappear from the art world. And I have been very lucky. I have had for a long period of time a strong network of friends, and we have been able to put together a large series of projects. One of the exhibitions that we did, which I'm trying to show you, but the first thing that we did, it was with the Museum of Contemporary Cats. It was the opening, And it was in Manchester. It was for something that is called the AND Festival, which is the Abandon Normal Devices. And I liked the idea of a museum that in a way was managed in an artistic manner. I liked the double sort of structure, changing from the normal curatorial approach to an artistic approach in the management itself of the museum, within which enter different curators through a process, because you will see, it's a process of international selections, but it's open to everybody. It is open to all different sorts of proposals. And one of the things that I wanted the project to do, it was to survey in actual data, but also in actual stories, what is happening today. On the website, you will see that there is a form, it's called the Deadly Cuts to the Arts, where you actually have the opportunity to fill up all different forms and all different kind of data. And particularly in the UK, people have received a letter of funding cuts from the Arts Council. And I have asked to everyone who has received a letter of funding cut to scan it and send it to us, and providing us data telling us in which day they have received that letter, how much money they have lost, giving us a digital copy of the letter, telling us their stories, getting in touch with us, in order to document all of this process. It has been very exciting. We have received very good responses. And one of the things that I also did, was to email the Arts Council and ask for all their data, because there is something like the freedom of information. So I can have all their data. You'll be surprised. They replied to me, which already, I'm Italian, I don't trust the government, I don't trust institutions, I tend not to trust anybody. You grow up in this, you grow up in the Mediterranean, yes, sun, there is a beautiful sea and etc. But then beyond that, you also know that in some ways there are some very wrong pictures and wrong situations that you have to deal with. So I said, okay, let me mail them, probably they will let us know in 20 days. A couple of days later, I received a reply, and they told me that I mailed them at the beginning of December. They say that you have requested loads of data. I would like to show you my email. It was very detailed, and it's also in the website. And they said, you have requested loads of data. We will give them to you by the January 12th or 15th, something like that. Then 2 days later, I received a first tranche of data. A couple of days later, I received a second email. By the 17th of December, I had all the data. So basically, I would say almost a month before the deadline that they had given me. And I thought that was very interesting, because I said, if I'm going to ask the same question now to different countries, which is what I want to do, I said, if I'm going to ask it to Italy, probably after humanity has disappeared, I will receive an email from the ministry in Italy telling me that, they are unable to provide me those data because the end of the world has happened in the meantime. So this is in order to show also how different bureaucracies work. And it wasn't something that I had thought initially would happen with this project. It's a sort of a shootout, which also becomes an area of research to look at how different bureaucracies across the European Union work. I'm not very nice towards my country. I'm going to tell you this. Probably some of you know and some of you understand it. Why? I think Mediterranean countries have great things to go for them. We all know what they are. We grow up, we are hardworking, we know that we have to think intelligently, we have to network, we have to make the best with the very, 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 very few resources that we have, which demand us to work hours on end. I do not have weekends, I have not had holidays. Christmas Day, I'm working, I'm answering emails on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, and etc., etc. Why? Because I know damn well that if I am not going to do it, and if I don't put that amount of effort into something, I'm not going to get certain kind of results. And that is what I always say to the artists that I work with, to the curators that I work with, to my students. You will get out from your career what you actually put into it. And this applies, unfortunately, to some countries better than others. In these days, you know, one of the first things that we mentioned today, it was Bunga Bunga. It has, you know, I have a paper I'm giving in October. It's on the Decameron of Boccaccio. If some of you know, it's a very racy story, very sexual, and it comes from the Middle Ages. I'll give you the gist of my argument. More or less, the title goes like this. I mean, it's probably not perfect, I can't remember exactly, but the title goes something like this. From Decameron's Boccaccio to Berlusconi's Bunga Bunga, a comparative analysis of the society in the Middle Ages to contemporary Italy. What it is this. In the Middle Ages, the story of Boccaccio signs a shift. We go from a country that is oppressed by religion, where sex is a sin, to something that is different. Suddenly, sex becomes a form of pleasure, which is unthinkable if we think about the Middle Ages. But that means that we are in the pre-humanistic period. We're moving towards the Renaissance. Society is changing, and there is a new form of, in inverted commas, a middle class that is emerging. Today, what are the sex scandals of Italian society telling us? And for the past few days, you have discovered, I knew this because it was in the trials, but it stayed into the Italian arena, you have discovered that one of the ladies was dressed as Obama. And what does it mean? I'm somebody that works on visual culture. Visually, what does it mean to have a sexual intercourse with somebody, or presumably fake a sexual intercourse with somebody that is dressed as Obama? What is the metaphor there? I'm not going to enter into that. I will write a paper, and we will. I'm sure you will have fun reading it. But going back to this, what is our society today? In Italian society, what you have is a concept that it is no longer necessary to work in order to become a member of parliament. It is no longer necessarily to work in order to achieve a position as a curator, as a researcher in a university. The model is actually a new model, is prostitution. Can we, as a society, live with cuts that are imposed by a political group and by an economic group that presents us as an alternative to the compassionate society that we wanted, to the society of solidarity, a society that is actually formally and verbally and in fact based upon prostitution? Because there was a phrase from a famous judge. He said, corruption has always existed. What is problematic today is the fact that nobody is ashamed of it and everybody flaunts it so openly. So when we're talking about cuts, what I fail to see is actually a political discourse about cutting corruption, cutting useless services, cutting politicians that have been impeached, they have been on trial, they have been condemned. One of the things that there was a debate in Italy in the 1970s, and it was with an Italian writer said that the south of Italy would southernize the north, okay? Which meant that a certain approach to public life, to bureaucracy, to system of values would be altered. Was it right? Was it wrong? I was at a conference and I went further. And I said that the Mediterranean had contributed corruption to the European Union. It's a strong phrase, okay? What does it mean? It means this. I'm wondering why we are not able to express a different political class. Why we're not able to express different politicians. And the big question is also a different question. It's a different one because in my experience, I discovered that the North looks at the South in a different way, with a prejudice, with a stereotypes, that in some ways could be justified, in others it's not. Nevertheless, cannot be applied to all of society. I'll try to explain this further. What it means is, in the European Union, I think the European Union has failed because it's a European Union of economies and it's not a European Union of citizens. I was a federalist. I have abandoned this idea now. And I've been saying it publicly for the past 5 years. Why? Because a European Union of economies is not what I wanted. I wanted a European Union that reflected the instances of the healthy part of Italian society. And I'm sure that there is a large part of Greek society, since we're talking about Greece, we are in Greece here today, that there is a large part of Greek society that looks at meritocracy, that looks at upwards social mobility, that looks at an idea of nation state that is not an European state, that is not embodied by the current European Union. This is a generalized crisis of values. Or as the English would say, the chickens have come home to roost. The problems you have created are coming back to you. Furthermore, there is one thing. I cannot understand why, if, as an Italian, I organize an event and I get paid 120,000 euros, I am corrupt. I've never been paid 120,000 euros. I know somebody in Germany that gets paid 120,000 euros to organize an event, and I said, isn't that corruption? No, he's a shrewd operator. I said, oh, okay. There is a serious problem with our societies when we're looking at the North and the South. For the past 20 years, Italy has been a corrupt country. It's nothing new. They knew it. They have participated in corruption. They live within this system. What I would like to understand is this. Yes, we have expressed corrupt politicians. They probably should have said no when a company like, was it Siemens? I want to make sure. Yes. Comes comes to you and say, okay, we'll give you 100 million euros. And you say, okay, I accept. But can I understand that the other part on the other side has committed a crime as well? So this idea that there is a north that is clean and a south that is dirty, in my opinion, does not hold. And it does not hold because, in my opinion, there is at least an ethical responsibility. The fact that today Italy is not changing and everybody is so happy that there is not a new political class and there is not a new expression, it is actually a failure. The part of the country that wanted change, that wanted a different society, has actually been abandoned by European institutions in favor of continuity, in favor of a continuity of a system that is, in my opinion, no longer valid. So, let's go back to the title of the work. As you can see, from the passion that I put in these things, I believe that we should fight. I don't think that we should be sitting around. I do not think that we should go with the flow. How should we fight? Well, probably that becomes a different sort of discourse. Certainly now there is something that is going on in Italy. People are starting to have violent responses, and violence in inverted commas. If a member of parliament is caught in a restaurant or in a supermarket, they get verbally assaulted. Am I surprised about that? I'm not, unfortunately. And these forms of tension will continue to raise unless we can find responses, we can find new ideas and new ways of doing things. I don't know how good it looks, but this was a performance that we did, and is an actual artwork on mine. It's called We Have Come to Shack Up With You. You know, in the UK it's typical, it's something that was done on purpose for the United Kingdom, and tailored for the UK. It's looking at something very, very simple. It's this idea in the UK that people that received a home from the state and had more rooms than necessary, they were obliged, or they are obliged, to rent them out, to share them with other people. And so what we did a walk to the official house, it's called the Chequers in Wendover, of the Prime Minister, in order to ask to be hosted in his beautiful mansion. And it's a very, very beautiful mansion. I'll try to see if I can open up the full image, but I doubt. Well, here you have a little bit of a better. We decided to go for something very, very colorful. It's this batch of red luggage that we presented, and it was basically an entire journey. One other thing that we did, it was this talk at the Royal College of Art that is called The Cost of Living, Metastasizing Epistemes and Social Crisis. What does it mean? Well, it is a project that has been done around the idea that the body of contemporary society is sick. It's a parallel between a body with metastases and a social body with metastases. Can we look then at contemporary capitalism or a contemporary post-capitalism as something that is as dangerous for the human body as a metastasis, as a cancer? And therefore, if you have a cancer, what do? You remove it, you cut it out. So what kind of discourses should we have and should we think about in order to reposition the structures? And here I'm not necessarily arguing for something that is, necessarily against capitalism, but it's against the post-capitalism, the corrupt forms of capitalism that we know very well that are not working and that the state is endorsing. I want to understand one thing. I don't know how many of you know about the scandal with the LIBOR, which is the interest rates that the bank raised, that they agreed between themselves, and they say, let's make everybody pay, okay, 20 cents more. Or it wasn't 20 cents, it was 200 euros more on their mortgages. Did you see the money back? That is a tax. The state has basically allowed banks, okay, to levy another tax on the population. I would like to understand one thing. With that money, instead of paying for billionaires, houses and properties and etc., could we have used that money for education? Could we have used that money for the health system, for the pension system? So the problem here is a form of predatory capitalism that is globalized with a state that is instead operating within national terms and at the mercy of the global finance and global industry. And I'll give you an example. We're doing a new series. I'm doing a new series of artworks on my own. And, you know, I don't know how many of you know about Spartacism. Spartacus, who probably you know, you have been seeing Spartacus, god of the arena. Well, from time to time, when there are moments of crisis, Spartacus comes out. What does it mean? In Rome, there is something that is called the Aventine. It's one of the 7 hills. When the slaves and the lower part of the population in Rome that had no rights or low rights couldn't hold it any longer, they just said, you know what? You rich people live over there. We are going to be moving somewhere else. And they moved on the Aventine. They separated themselves. They cut themselves out from the body of society. And so I decided to do this new artwork, which is actually made of poster. You tell me when I need to stop because I can chew the ears of a donkey. And I'm just going to tell you this. This is made of a series of funny political posters. And the posters, one of the posters has a very kind of funny phrase. And it says, I'm paraphrasing again, do you really think that your lives are more important to them than their diamond-encrusted toilets on their submarines? Question mark. And what is that all about? And I think I will close here so you can ask me all different sorts of questions. I always imagine, you know, billions. How many of you have seen a billion? How many of you have seen 100? You have seen a billion. Great. Afterwards, you have to tell me what it looks like. Okay. It was so much gold. Okay. When I haven't had the luck of seeing it, and I have not the luck of owning it. So when somebody tells me, oh, it's worth 100 million, I struggle to see, and I struggle to understand. And the point is this: how much money do you actually need? There was the latest edition of Spartacus, and he's talking to Crassus. It's the moment in which they're facing each other in the TV series. And Spartacus say, how much blood and how much gold is it needed to satisfy your greed? And that's what I think. How much money do you really need? And I always imagine these people in their huge villas, okay? And of course, if you are a multi-billionaire, you have a huge villa. And with the huge villa, you have a submarine in case the apocalypse happens. You know, revolution, whatever, you have your submarine, beautifully equipped, white, shiny, you know, beautifully designed and etc. And of course, what do you put in your submarine? You put diamond-encrusted toilets because you cannot use a ceramic bowl toilet. when all the world is falling apart, the apocalypse is upon you, the zombies are running towards your house. I imagine and I see these people running towards their submarine, beautiful, and, probably scared, running to the diamond toilet and closing themselves in there. And at that point, I think, could you have done with a solid gold toilet? With a gold-plated toilet? Or could you have done, with a simple ceramic bowl toilet? And I'll close the talk here, and I will let you ask me all the questions that you wish. Thank you so much. Yes, this is a performance I'm doing in Cyprus. I'm going to Cyprus after this, and it's called A Pound of Flesh.
So if you want any questions, we're open now. Is anybody? So then I will make a question to you, Lanfranco.
Yep.
Many platforms that they are here, they have as a problematic the thing with the crisis. Do you think that art can be the solution to all these problems?
I don't know that if it can be a solution. I mean, solutions are very complex and complicated, but at the same time, I think they're also very simple. I think that art has a duty, and the duty of art, for me, historically, has always been that of leading the way to create a new perception. If we look at, for example, I'll give you a recent example. I don't want to go to Raffaello, Leonardo, and etc., but if we look at Andy Warhol, if we look, for example, at Damien Hirst, at the young British artist, they represented a certain approach to society, which is an approach that is based on strong individualism, detachment from what society is, an approachment to the arts that is mainly seen in economic terms, for good or bad, whatever it has produced, it has produced. But it is an approach that was a reflection, particularly if we look at Andy Warhol and the young British artist, there was a reflection of a particular society in a particular time. That actually, in many ways, justified and opened the way to rethinking society, mainly and merely in economic and individualistic terms. So, what I think is the role of art is to propose a vision, to create a visual, to create an idea that sticks, to probably say, no longer diamond toilets. Do with something else. You cannot levy a tax for billions of euros, taking money away from people illegally, because that is illegal, and not giving it back without receiving a fine, or receiving a fine that is ridiculous, because proportionally, if you stole 100 billion euros and you're paying 500 million euros in fine, you have had an earning of 950 billion. It is impossible. It cannot be. It's like me going to a shop and stealing, 100 prosciuttos or, 100 Nike shoes. And then you come to me and you fine me for one pair of shoes. I have 99 that I can resell. I have made money. You haven't created me any problem. You're justifying my behavior. Because my behavior, without any ethics and in pure economic terms, is functional. It's functional to a dysfunctional society. And this is the problem that I have. I don't think that it is no longer possible to talk about society without talking about ethics, and ethics of behaviors and ethics of economics. Because to do that, then it means to say that, seriously, we no longer have a society. And if we no longer have a society, then, there is no reason for me to do anything at all that goes beyond what I am paid for. There is no duty that I have. I do not have an ethical or moral obligation towards the state in anything that may happen. I do not have an obligation of solidarity towards anybody. I hope it answered.
Thank you for coming.
You have an answer.
Oh, you have an answer. You have a question, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Achilleas.
We definitely live contemporary Middle Ages now, in the sense that that time you could be killed. Now you can say whatever you want to say, but nobody hears, nobody listens. At the same time, we see that the self-intolerance that Europe has now, which is obvious, is based on the fact that the majority of the countries of Europe had a behavior that should come back after the United Europe and say, I'm sorry for that. They rape half of the global sphere, from Africa to Indonesia and everything, and they said absolutely nothing. And these people, they still produce the politicians. So if we see that this is the consistency that this system is producing, we have no other obligation to go back to communities, because society, you're right, it doesn't exist because they try to apply community behaviors into society. And this is not possible because there is one level that it cannot work above that. So now with technology, I believe art is the only platform. I don't believe in art. I'm an artist, but I don't believe in art. But art has the blessing of building and destroying anything without destroying the world. So actually, this is the platform that through the technology we have now to create communities. And these communities should be self-autonomous, and this is the only way I believe that we should make our own systems and have technology. And so I believe what you said, we have to have a way to network and act in synchronicity. Because to agree on something, it's one thing, but to act in synchronicity is the one that makes the impact. And it's something we experience now here because of this parallel platform project. And I think it's not only that there are good ideas to come out, but it was networking and then it was synchronized. And you realize, because you see, I'm here, I'm doing something, and all of a sudden somebody's doing the same, a bit different. And that's what makes the impact, and that's what gives you courage. And we saw the impact on society already from the people visiting. So I think art, this abstract element is called art, is the only solution, because all the rest failed, including science.
Yeah. I actually agree, because one of the things that probably I would like to highlight is that art today, and particularly art and technology, can create and shape behaviors. And that, I believe, is important. It's very, very difficult to change our way of doing things, to change our behaviors. Nevertheless, there is that possibility, there is that opportunity. And art, as you were saying, offers that sort of platform. It offers the possibility of sharing a vision, and it offers the possibility to say, well, if enough people change the way in which they're doing things, well, certain kind of problems are bound to change, are bound to. I'm going to close, and I'm going to tell you this publicly. I'm working on a project, and it's called Direct Democracy. Okay? It's called Direct Democracy today. And it's actually a behavioral study / an artwork. How many of you know how the fraud system of the European Union for European funding works? I'm going to tell you this, how it works. It's very, very simple. If I'm a thief, I have to go to the police and say to the police, I'm a thief and I have stolen this money. This is how the system to discover fraud of the European Union works. The states have to report the frauds that are happening in the state itself. I have a very big question to you. In a corrupt country, and I'll use still Italy, like Italy, where politicians control the funding, okay, for their own purposes, where they use funding that, for example, is destined to people with disability to finance their own political campaigns, how do you expect these people to come to you and to declare themselves as thieves? So we are setting up a platform in order to see if actually we can change the system. So, you know, stay tuned and you'll see. I don't know if it's gonna change anything, but at least it's an attempt. It gives an idea of what kind of behaviors can be changed and what the consequences of those behaviors are. Okay. Thank you so much to everybody, and if you want to talk or anything, I'm here.
Καλησπέρα και από κοντά. Όπως σας είπα και πριν από λίγο, δυστυχώς έτυχε στην τελευταία ομιλία της σημερινής, στις τελευταίες 2 ομιλίες της σημερινές, να μην έχουν τη δυνατότητα να κάνουμε ανακοίνωση, οπότε θα είμαστε πιο λίγοι, πιο μαζεμένοι κοντά, θα είναι πιο παρεΐστικη η ατμόσφαιρα. Αυτό είναι καλό, γιατί μπαίνοντας στο χώρο έτσι τώρα που είμαι εδώ πέρα κάποια ώρα και βλέπω, έχω μια λύπη και μια χαρά. Η λύπη μου είναι ότι τα πρόσωπα που βλέπω σήμερα δεν τα είχα ξαναδεί την Παρασκευή, που ήταν το πρώτο κομμάτι των ομιλιών. Αλλά η μεγάλη μου χαρά είναι ότι δεν θα χρειαστεί να κάνω καινούργια εισαγωγή. Την έχω έτοιμη από την Παρασκευή, συνεπώς δεν θα χρειαστεί να κάνω καινούργια εισαγωγή. Τα έχω όλα ετοιμάσει και τα έχω σκεφτεί. Λέγομαι Γιώργος Ορεόπουλος και κάνω μόνο αυτή τη σύσταση, γιατί δεν είμαι στον καλλιτεχνικό χώρο, δεν είμαι στον εικαστικό χώρο, δεν με γνωρίζετε. Η σχέση μου με αυτή που δημιουργήθηκε πριν από 2 χρόνια είναι επειδή με την Άρτεμι την Ποταμιάνου, που είναι υπεύθυνη όλης αυτής της πλατφόρμας που έχει ετοιμαστεί, της έκθεσης μέσα στο παράλληλο πρόγραμμα των εκδηλώσεων της Art-Athina, το Platform Project. Έχουμε μια κοινή ραδιοφωνική εκπομπή, μια ιντερνετική ραδιοφωνική εκπομπή που φιλοξενείται στο www.beton7radio.gr. Θα σας το πω κάνα 2 φορές μέχρι το τέλος για να κάνω και διαφήμιση στην εκπομπή. Άλλωστε, έχει να κάνει πάντοτε με την παρουσίαση της σύγχρονης εικαστικής ελληνικής πραγματικότητας και διεθνής, όταν τυχαίνει να έχουμε καλεσμένους από το εξωτερικό. Και βλέπουμε πώς αυτή παρουσιάζεται, αλλά φτιάχνοντας πορτρέτα εικαστικών, καλλιτεχνών, κριτικών τέχνης και άλλων ανθρώπων. Σήμερα, η Art-Athina έχει μια βασική διαφορά από όλες τις άλλες εμπορικές εκθέσεις. Αυτή η διαφορά της έγκυται ότι πέρα από το εμπορικό της κομμάτι, που είναι το ουσιαστικό και είναι αυτό που γίνεται αυτή τη στιγμή στον κάτω χώρο της έκθεσης, για πρώτη φορά, και νομίζω ότι υπάρχει μια ισορροπία φέτος σε αυτό το πράγμα. Πέρυσι δεν είχε γίνει βέβαια η Art-Athina, αλλά αυτό δεν έχει σημασία. Υπάρχει μια ισορροπία, γιατί στον πάνω χώρο υπάρχει αυτό το παράλληλο πρόγραμμα με τα Platform Project. Οφείλω να ομολογήσω ότι αυτός ο διάλογος ήταν λίγο αμήχανος στην αρχή, από ό,τι άκουσα και από άλλους ανθρώπους. Αλλά αυτό που ήταν πολύ ενθαρρυντικό, διαβάζοντας μια συνέντευξη σήμερα το πρωί του κ. Κανιάρη, που είναι ο Γενικός Διευθυντής της Art-Athina, είναι ότι ο στόχος της Art-Athina δεν είναι αποκλειστικά εμπορικός. Και νομίζω ότι αυτό είναι ένα πολύ καλό έναυσμα για να συνεχιστεί όλη αυτή η προσπάθεια. Να πω μόνο, και τελειώνω για να μην σας απασχολώ και παίρνω και το χρόνο από την κυρία Τούμπουρα, ότι το Platform Project φέτος, για όσοι τυχόν δεν ξέρουν, είναι ένα πρόγραμμα που έχει επιμεληθεί η Artemis Potamianou και που σκοπό έχει να παρουσιάσουν καλλιτέχνες τη δράση τους μέσα από μη κερδοσκοπικούς οργανισμούς. Στόχος τους δεν είναι σε καμία περίπτωση η εμπορικότητα. Στόχος τους είναι να αναπτυχθεί ένας διάλογος μεταξύ των καλλιτεχνών, των εικαστικών. Γι' αυτό άλλωστε είναι μεγάλη επιτυχία ότι συμμετέχουν τουλάχιστον 45 πλατφόρμες από 16 χώρες και πάνω από 500 καλλιτέχνες. Το σημερινό πρόγραμμα λοιπόν θα το ανοίξει η κυρία Τούμπουρα, με θέμα ο φετιχισμός του εισαγόμενου και οι παρενέργειές του στην εγχώρια καλλιτεχνική δραστηριότητα. Η κυρία Τούμπουρα είναι εικαστικός και κοινιολόγος, διαχειρίστρια του Openshowstudio. Λέω μόνο 2 πραγματάκια, γιατί θα μας πει σαφώς πολύ πιο σημαντικά εκείνη, ότι ιδρύθηκε το 2010 το Openshowstudio με πρωτοβουλία της ίδιας, και η διπλή της αυτή ιδιότητα είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα, και ιδιαίτερα η έρευνα της πλατφόρμας πάνω στο ιδιότυπο αξιακό ρατσισμό που υφίστανται οι Έλληνες καλλιτέχνες από την ίδια την ελληνική αγορά. Το Openshowstudio έχει μεταξελιχθεί από πλατφόρμα που λειτουργούσε μέχρι πρότινος σε ανεξάρτητη οργανωτική πλατφόρμα, διευρύνοντας έτσι το πεδίο δράσης, αλλά διατηρώντας και το χαρακτηριστικό του βιτρίνα project. Να πω ότι κάνει project μέσα στη δημόσια σφαίρα, από τον αστικό χώρο μέχρι το Αιγαίο Πέλαγος, αλλά αφήνω όλα τα υπόλοιπα να μας τα πει η ίδια. Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Και εγώ σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Το θέμα το οποίο ήθελα να θίξω σήμερα είναι ένα θέμα το οποίο για χρόνια δεν το πολύ ακουμπούσαμε εμείς οι Έλληνες καλλιτέχνες, αλλά με χαρά βλέπω ότι μέσα σε αυτές τις τελευταίες μέρες μόνο έχουν γίνει πάρα πολλές νήξεις, όχι μόνο μεταξύ μας, τα πηχαδάκια μας, τα καλλιτεχνικά, αλλά και από άλλους φορείς της σύγχρονης τέχνης, από επιμελητές σε συνεντεύξεις, οι οποίοι αναφέρονται ακριβώς στο φαινόμενο της απαξίωσης του Έλληνα καλλιτέχνη, του σύγχρονου Έλληνα καλλιτέχνη, στην ελληνική αγορά της τέχνης. Την απαξίωση εννοώντας την μη προτίμησή του ως επιλογή αγοραστική. Θα μου πείτε γιατί να κάνουμε και ποιοι είμαστε εμείς που θα επιβάλλουμε την αγορά των δικών μας έργων και θα υπαγορέψουμε το ποιος και γιατί θα αγοράζει ποιον ή ποιος και γιατί θα εκθέτει ποιον. Γιατί δεν αναφέρομαι μόνο στους συλλέκτες αυτή τη στιγμή και στους αγοραστές. Αναφέρομαι και σε επιλογές μεγάλων γκαλερί και πρότινος και επιμελητών, οι οποίοι επιμελητές μέχρι πρότινος συχνά προτιμούσαν να δώσουν έμφαση σε επιλογές ξένων καλλιτεχνών και βλέπουμε ότι ίσως αυτή η οικονομική στενότητα των διοργανώσεων πλέον, οι οποίες δεν μπορούν να καλύψουν μεταφορικά έξοδα των έργων και επίσης δεν μπορούν να καλύψουν και την ασφάλιση των έργων, τους αναγκάζει για μεγάλη μας χαρά μέσα στην ατυχία μας να στραφούν προς εμάς. Εδώ θέλω να κάνω καταρχάς μια διευκρίνηση, έτσι. Δεν είναι ότι θεωρούμε πως θα πρέπει να λείψουν οι παρουσιάσεις ξένων καλλιτεχνών σε εκθεσιακούς χώρους, με τίποτα. Αντίθετα, είναι εξαιρετικά σημαντική και απαραίτητη για να μπορούμε να έχουμε μια σύγχρονη σκηνή τέχνης και μια ανταλλαγή πολιτιστική, η οποία όχι μόνο προσφέρει, αλλά πλέον είναι και η ουσία της σύγχρονης τέχνης. Γιατί αν μιλάμε για μια σύγχρονη τέχνη, εννοούμε μια τέχνη που έχει ένα παγκόσμιο λεξιλόγιο. Δεύτερον, όταν μιλάω για εγχώριους καλλιτέχνες, δεν εννοώ πλέον ελληνικής επικότητας. Έτσι, γι' αυτό θα μιλήσω για ντόπιους, για εγχώριους, δεν θα μιλάω για Έλληνες, γιατί ήδη έχει αρχίσει και μεγαλώνει μια γενιά μεταναστών, ήδη έχουν αρχίσει και τελειώνουν την καλών τεχνών, οι οποίοι δεν έχουν πάρει φυσικά υπηκότητα, για τους γνωστούς λόγους που όλοι γνωρίζουμε, αλλά παρόλα αυτά τους θεωρούμε μέρη της εγχώριας σκηνής, έτσι, οπότε δεν αναφερόμαστε σε εθνικότητα σε καμία περίπτωση, αναφερόμαστε σε εντοπιότητα. Η εντοπιότητα από μόνη της φέρει σίγουρα κάποια χαρακτηριστικά. Σε μια παγκοσμιοποιημένη κοινωνία δεν είναι τα χαρακτηριστικά που θα ήταν άλλοτε. Τόσο έντονα, τόσο καθοριστικά, τόσο διαφοροποιητικά. Παρόλα αυτά, όμως, είναι τα χαρακτηριστικά που θα δώσουν μια ιδιαίτερη ταυτότητα και θα δώσουν, αν θέλετε, και την γοητεία την όλη της ανταλλαγής και την κινητήρια δύναμη για μια περαιτέρω εξέλιξη της παγκόσμιας σκηνής, διότι εάν δεν υπήρχαν διαφορές για να υποκινούν τη διάδραση, τότε δεν θα υπήρχε διάδραση και δεν θα υπήρχε και εξέλιξη. Δεν θα υπήρχε ζήμωση. Άρα, λοιπόν, το να σταθούμε σε ένα χαρακτηρισμό μιας σκηνής ως εγχώριας, που την διαφοροποιεί από μια σκηνή ως μη εγχώρια, γίνεται ακριβώς για λόγους μιας παγκοσμιοποιημένης θεώρησης της τέχνης και όχι το αντίθετο. Όχι για λόγους τοπικισμού. Μέσα από τη διαφορά γεννάται το καινούριο. Και εμείς έχουμε τη δική μας διαφορά και για αυτή τη διαφορά θα μιλήσω πολύ σύντομα σήμερα. Παίρνοντας λοιπόν ως δεδομένο ότι το φαινόμενο αυτό της απαξίωσης των σύγχρονων Ελλήνων καλλιτεχνών από τους ίδιους τους φορείς της χώριας σκηνής της τέχνης υπάρχει, είναι δεδομένο, το βιώνουμε καθημερινά, θα προχωρήσω λίγο επιγραμματικά στις συνέπειες που θεωρώ ότι αυτό φέρει. Καταρχάς, βλέπουμε μέσα στην αμηχανία μας, βλέπουμε τις εξής αντιδράσεις από πολλούς από εμάς. Καταρχάς, μια πρώτη αντίδραση είναι να μεταναστεύσουμε για λίγο ή πολύ. Για λίγο, προσπαθώντας να κάνουμε με κάποια μεταπτυχιακά, κάποια πτυχία, κάποια residency. Για πολύ, παίρνοντας τα πραγματάκια μας και φεύγοντας πραγματικά και ψάχνοντας να βρούμε μια καινούρια αρχή σε κέντρα τέχνης της Ευρώπης, κυρίως, αλλά όχι μόνο, η οποία καθ' άλλο παρά εύκολη είναι στο τέλος, γιατί ακριβώς αυτά τα κέντρα σειραίουν ποτάμια νέων καλλιτεχνών, κυνηγώντας το ίδιο όνειρο, οπότε δεν είναι ότι λύνεται το πρόβλημά μας μεταναστεύοντας. Παρ' όλα αυτά, δεν θα θεωρήσω ότι είναι κάτι το αρνητικό αυτό που συμβαίνει, η κινητικότητα των Ελλήνων καλλιτεχνών μέσα στο παγκόσμιο στερέωμα. Ίσα-ίσα, είναι κάτι πάρα πολύ θετικό και επειδή ακριβώς πλέον τη σήμερα ημέρα δεν κόβεται η επαφή, φεύγοντας, δεν χάνεται η επαφή, διότι αυτό που πρέπει να τονίσουμε, για αυτούς που δεν το έχουν καταλάβει ακόμα, είναι ότι πλέον δεν χρειάζεται να είσαι ασταμάτητα φυσικά παρόν σε ένα μέρος για να γνωρίζεις τι συμβαίνει. Υπάρχει αυτό το πράγμα που λέγεται ίντερνετ, υπάρχει μια διαδικτυακή επικοινωνία, υπάρχει ένας τρόπος να γνωρίζουμε, να ενημερωνόμαστε και να αλληλεπιδρούμε μεταξύ μας ως καλλιτέχνες, όπου και να είμαστε. Άρα, λοιπόν, το θέμα δεν έχει να κάνει με το κατά πόσο απομονωνόμαστε αν μείνουμε εδώ ή κατά πόσο κοντά στα πράγματα είμαστε εάν φύγουμε από εδώ. Μπορούμε να είμαστε κοντά στα πράγματα όπου και να είμαστε. Αυτή η έννοια του επαρχιατισμού, ότι είμαστε εδώ και χάνουμε τις εξελίξεις, δεν ισχύει πλέον. Διότι ζούμε στο 2013. Και αυτό είναι κάτι που πρέπει να το βάλουμε καλά στο μυαλό μας και να σταματήσουμε να έχουμε αυτές τις ανησυχίες και αυτά τα κόμπλεξ κατωτερότητας. Ότι είμαστε κάπου που μένουμε στην απέξω και πρέπει να οτιδήποτε. Η μετανάστευση, λοιπόν, αυτή των νέων Ελλήνων καλλιτεχνών δημιουργεί το πολύ θετικό ότι αυτόματα δημιουργούνται δίκτυα, επιπλέον δίκτυα επικοινωνίας, τα οποία θα δούμε και μετά πώς μπορούν να χρησιμεύσουν. Μια δεύτερη συνέπεια, πέραν από την πρώτη αυτή, η οποία για κάθε μένα είναι τελικά θετική, είναι μια τάση που βλέπαμε τα προηγούμενα κυρίως χρόνια, να στρέφονται οι καλλιτέχνες στο τι είναι αριστό τελικά από τους φορείς της τέχνης που αποφασίζουν για το τι θα εκτίθεται και τι όχι, το οποίο αυτό που ήταν αριστό ίσως να προσομοίαζε τις τάσεις κάποιων άλλων κεντροευρωπαϊκών σκηνών, με αποτέλεσμα να αυτολογοκρινόμαστε και να νομίζω ίσως να περιορίζουμε το δικό μας το ιδίωμα, το οποίο αν το αφήναμε να εξελιχθεί και να αναπτυχθεί αυθόρμητα θα ήταν κάπως διαφορετικό. Ένα παράδειγμα, νομίζω, είναι, ας πούμε, η πλήρης απουσία χρώματος για πολλά χρόνια από τους Έλληνες καλλιτέχνες, των Ελλήνων καλλιτεχνών, το οποίο νομίζω, χωρίς να μπορώ να αποδείξω κάτι, αυτά τα δείχνει και όλο ο καιρός, αλλά νομίζω ότι ήταν περισσότερο θέμα αυτολογοκρισίας και παρά κάτι το οποίο ήταν πηγαίο. Καθότι στην κεντρική σκηνή της Ευρώπης τα πράγματα ήταν γκρι και ασπρόμαυρα ή πολύ conceptual. Δεν υπήρχε θέση για χρώμα και ούτε ακόμα υπάρχει πολύ. Κάτι το οποίο είναι ίσως κατανοητό γιατί οι άνθρωποι ζουν εκεί που ζουν. Έχουν τα ερεθίσματα που έχουν. Έχουμε εμείς κάποια άλλα ερεθίσματα. Αυτά τα ερεθίσματα που έχουμε εμείς δεν μπορούμε να τα... Θεωρώ ότι το να τα μονώνουμε, να τα εξορίζουμε από την τέχνη μας, δεν είναι και ό,τι καλύτερο. Χωρίς βέβαια και πάλι, βάζω αστερίσιο, χωρίς βέβαια και πάλι να θέλω να γενικοποιήσω και να πω ότι όλοι οι εξαιρετικοί σχεδιαστές που έχουμε οι Έλληνες σχεδιαστές που έχουμε στην Ελλάδα δεν είναι ειλικρινείς με την τέχνη τους, έτσι. Μιλάω για μια γενικότερη τάση, η οποία ήταν εμφανής, νομίζω ότι όλοι σας έχετε δει τη μαύρη μαυρίλα σε εκθεσιακούς χώρους, που υπήρχε για μια δεκαετία σχεδόν. Θεωρώ λοιπόν ότι υπήρχε μια τάση αυτολογοκρισίας σε όλο αυτό και το βλέπουμε τώρα σιγά σιγά να σπάει και να επιστρέφει έτσι μια πιο ηλιόλουστη κατάσταση στις αίθουσες τέχνης. Μία τρίτη συνέπεια αυτής της έλλειψης υποστήριξης προς τη σύγχρονη ελληνική σκηνή είναι πάρα πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα και νομίζω είναι η πιο ενδιαφέρουσα και εκεί που θα σταθώ περισσότερο. Είναι μια τάση των νέων καλλιτεχνών να πάρουν τα πράγματα στα χέρια τους από άποψη όχι μόνο καλλιτεχνικής παραγωγής, αλλά και πλέον επικοινωνίας με το κοινό. Πρόθεσης της δουλειάς τους. Έχουμε βρει νέες φόρμες παρουσίασης, νέες φόρμες επικοινωνίας. Έχουν γίνει ένα σώρο κολεκτίβες, ένα σώρο εναλλακτικοί χώροι, οι οποίοι δεν έρχονται να λειτουργήσουν βέβαια ανταγωνιστικά με τις ήδη υπάρχουσες γκαλερία, αλλά συμπληρωματικά θα έλεγα, και οι οποίοι λειτουργούν χωρίς κερδοσκοπικές βλέψεις, ακριβώς και μόνο στοχεύονται στο να καλύψουν αρχικά το κενό επικοινωνίας, το οποίο η όλη αυτή η έλλειψη υποστήριξης και ξενομανίας, αν μου επιτρέψετε να πω, δημιουργούσε. Σε όλη αυτή λοιπόν την κίνηση των ντόπιων καλλιτεχνών υπάρχει ένας ρομαντισμός και μία, ας πούμε, απαλλαγή από την επιδίωξη του κέρδους, έστω και προσωρινή. Με ποια έννοια ότι φτάνοντας σε ένα σημείο όπου κανείς στην ουσία δεν θα στηρίξει με έναν τρόπο πραγματικά βιώσιμο τη δουλειά μας, το έχουμε λίγο σαν να βάλει στην άκρη. Δεν είναι η προτεραιότητά μας να βρούμε τον αγοραστή, να βρούμε την αίθουσα εκείνη που θα είναι η πιο εμπορική, γιατί απλά η έννοια της εμπορικότητας στην χώρια σκηνή έχει αρχίσει να είναι ένα ανέκδοτο. Αλλά, παρόλα αυτά, η ίδια η καλλιτεχνική δραστηριότητα οργιάζει πραγματικά. Είμαστε, νομίζω, σε μια πάρα πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα χρονική στιγμή. Και αυτό είναι και το οξύμορο και το αξιοπερίεργο και τελικά αυτό το πιο ελπιδοφόρο από όλα. Μία συνάδελφος, η οποία είναι από τις περιπτώσεις που μετανάστευσαν στο Βερολίνο, γύρισε πριν από λίγο και χαρακτήρισε την όλη σκηνή με 2 λέξεις του Βερολίνου, έτσι. Δόξα και χρήμα. Δηλαδή ένα old school πρότυπο κίνησης των καλλιτεχνών, όπου το καλλιτεχνικό όνειρο υποτάσσεται σε αυτές τις 2 λέξεις κλειδιά, δόξα και χρήμα. Εδώ, λοιπόν, είμαστε στο ακριβώς αντίθετο άκρο, σε έναν πολύ μεγάλο ρομαντισμό, ο οποίος για μένα είναι αυτός που αποδεικνύει στην ουσία την μεγάλη αλήθεια των έργων μας αυτή τη στιγμή. Έργα που παράγονται ακριβώς για να καλύψουν την πρωταρχική μας ανάγκη να είμαστε δημιουργοί, την πρωταρχική μας ανάγκη να είμαστε καλλιτέχνες και για τούτο και αποκτούν και αξία ούτως ή άλλως. Γιατί σύμφωνα με... Θα επικαλεστώ τη διαθήκη του Ροντέν, ότι πραγματικά καλό είναι αυτό που είναι πραγματικά αληθινό, πραγματικά από μέσα μας. Αδιαφορεί για τις τρέχουσες επιταγές, τις εξωτερικές επιταγές και υπακούει στο πρώτο και κύριο κριτήριο, το να είμαστε αληθινοί σε αυτό που κάνουμε. Αυτή τη στιγμή, λοιπόν, δεδομένη η χρονική στιγμή, η ελληνική τέχνη είναι πάρα πολύ αληθινή σε αυτό που κάνει. Γιατί ακριβώς συνεχίζει να το κάνει, χωρίς να έχει καμία υποστήριξη από άποψη οικονομική, έχει απαλλαχθεί, στην ουσία έχει απελευθερωθεί λόγω των συνδικών, έτσι, όχι λόγω επιλογής, από αυτό το, αν θέλετε, περιορισμό. Και ακριβώς αυτή τη στιγμή ελευθερίας είναι που ξεκινούν και παράγονται τα πιο αληθινά για μένα και γι' αυτό καλά έργα. Γι' αυτό, λοιπόν, θεωρώ ότι είναι ακριβώς η στιγμή που η επένδυση στη σύγχρονη τέχνη είναι μια πάρα πολύ καλή έξυπνη κίνηση. Μια τέχνη που παράγεται από ανθρώπους που φαίνεται ότι είναι αφοσιωμένοι απόλυτα σε αυτό που κάνουν, ακόμα και σε αυτές τις συνθήκες. Και το νούμερο ένα κριτήριο, ξέρετε, για την αξία ενός έργου είναι το κατά πόσο ο δημιουργός του είναι σοβαρά εκεί για να μείνει και θα συνεχίσει να υπάρχει και κατά πόσο θα συνεχίσει να παράγει. Αυτό είναι το νούμερο ένα κριτήριο που θα πείσει, που θα αποδείξει την αξία του εκάστοτε δημιουργού. Και νομίζω ότι σε αυτό το κριτήριο είμαστε όλοι μας, αυτό το κριτήριο όλοι μας το πληρούμε αυτή τη δεδομένη χρονική στιγμή. Αυτά ήταν η συντομία αυτά που ήθελα να πω.
Αν
ξέρω,
υπάρχει...
ναι.
Αν υπάρχει κάποιος που... Αυτό είναι το κακό μικρόφωνο, μάλλον. Αν υπάρχει κάποιος που θα ήθελε να κάνει κάποια ερώτηση στη Σοφία, να ρωτήσω εγώ τότε, μια που δεν υπάρχει κάποιος που να θέλει να κάνει μια ερώτηση, ο ρόλος της κοινωνιολόγου ή της εικαστικού είναι αυτός που είναι πιο σημαντικός για σένα? Μπορεί να μην είναι και κανένας, εσύ θα μας πεις. Είναι ανεξίσου.
Δεν είναι ρόλος, είναι ιδιότητα. Τώρα, ναι. Στη δεδομένη συζήτηση, το δεδομένο θέμα, νομίζω ότι το έθεσα και από τα δύο αδιάκριτα. Δεν μπορώ να πω.
Αν κάποιος δηλαδή σου ζητούσε να κρατήσεις μία ιδιότητα, μόνο ότι ξέρω ότι αυτό είναι πολύ αυθαίρετο, θα μπορούσε να επιλέξεις μία? Με έχει πιάσει λιγάκι αυτό που κάνουμε στην εκπομπή με την Artemis και το είχαμε κάνει και προχθές για να προκαλέσουμε λίγο τον ενδιαφέρον. Θα υποστείς σύντομα τη βάση των ερωτήσεων μας, φαντάζομαι και ραδιοφωνικά, οπότε γι' αυτό σε προετοιμάζω.
Όχι, αν υπήρχε μόνο ένας χαρακτηρισμός που θα έπρεπε οπωσδήποτε να επιβάλλω στον εαυτό μου, θα ήταν αυτός του δημιουργού.
Να ευχαριστήσουμε πάρα πολύ τους... Αν δεν υπάρχουν άλλες ερωτήσεις, εκτός από τις δικές μου, να ευχαριστήσουμε τους... ξέρω ότι υπάρχει ένα πρόβλημα... υπάρχει μικρόφωνο.
Για να πούνε
το θέμα είναι να σε ακούει και ο κόσμος που...
Εγώ θα ήθελα να σας ρωτήσω σε σχέση με την κρίση που υπάρχει στην Ελλάδα και την έκφρασή της έτσι όπως την περιγράψατε, νομίζω με πάρα πολύ μεγάλο ενδιαφέρον και ήταν πολύ ωραία η ομιλία σας. Ποια είναι η άποψή σας σε σχέση, εάν μπορεί κανείς να κάνει τέτοιου είδους συγκρίσεις, η ελληνική κρίση σε σχέση με την ισπανική κρίση ή σε σχέση με την ιταλική κρίση και τα έργα τα οποία προέρχονται από εκεί. Δηλαδή, οι ανάλογες κινήσεις του νότου της Ευρώπης, ο οποίος υποφέρει αυτή τη στιγμή πάρα πολύ. Και το ρωτάω γιατί εγώ πριν λίγες μέρες ήρθα από τη Μαδρίτη και δεν αισθάνομαι ότι υπάρχει μια έντονη κινητικότητα, αλλά αισθάνομαι ότι εδώ είναι πιο έντονη, γι' αυτό σας ρωτάω.
Ναι, νομίζω ότι δεν μπορούμε ακριβώς να συγκρίνουμε σε επίπεδο σύγχρονης καλλιτεχνικής δραστηριότητας αυτές τις τρεις χώρες, ενώ μπορούμε να τις συγκρίνουμε σε επίπεδο πολιτικό γενικότερα και κοινωνικό. Αλλά ειδικά στο θέμα της σύγχρονης καλλιτεχνικής δραστηριότητας, δυστυχώς, στην Ελλάδα δεν υπήρξε ποτέ ουσιαστική κρατική μέριμνα για την έννοια της σύγχρονης τέχνης. Ουδέποτε. Ενώ και στην Ιταλία και στην Ισπανία υπήρξε μια θεσμική οργανωμένη, ας πούμε, βάση. Όχι μια που θα μπορούσε να ανταγωνιστεί τις βόρειες χώρες, αλλά σίγουρα υπήρξε. Εδώ ούτως ή άλλως είμαστε τόσο πολύ εκπαιδευμένοι στο να κάνουμε πράγματα από μόνοι μας, που ήμασταν ένα βήμα μπροστά. Κακώς εχόντων των πραγμάτων, βέβαια, αλλά ήμασταν ούτως ή άλλως ένα βήμα μπροστά. Δηλαδή, όταν μας βρήκε αυτό το πράγμα γενικότερα ως κοινωνία, ως μικροκοινότητα καλλιτεχνική, ήδη είχαμε αρχίσει ήδη τα αντιμετωπίζαμε αυτά τα πράγματα. Δηλαδή, ας πούμε, το πρόβλημα της μη υποστήριξης των Ελλήνων καλλιτεχνών από μεγάλους συλλέκτες ή από μεγάλους φορείς, τέλος πάντων, της σύγχρονης ελληνικής τέχνης, ήταν κάτι που υπήρχε και πιο πριν. Απλά τώρα πια φωνάζει τόσο πολύ, λόγω της κατάστασης. Είναι κάτι όμως που είναι ελληνική ιδιομορφία. Δεν υπήρχε στις άλλες χώρες τόσο πολύ. Θα μου επιτρέψετε να πω κομπλεξισμός. Είναι βαριά λέξη, αλλά νομίζω ότι αυτή είναι η κατάλληλη. Με αυτή την έννοια δεν είμαστε στην ίδια μοίρα, όχι.
Λοιπόν, όπως θα καταλάβετε, η κυρία είναι από τη Φιλανδία, είναι από το εξωτερικό και είναι από τη Φιλανδία. Ο τίτλος της παρουσίας που θα κάνουν είναι «Ο καλλιτέχνης είναι» και αναφέρονται στους ρόλους των καλλιτεχνών στη σύγχρονη κοινωνία. Έχω κάνει εντατικά μαθήματα, λίγο πριν έρθω εδώ πέρα, δεν ξέρω αν θα πετύχουν, για τον τίτλο της Ένωσης και της γκαλερί τους. Η γκαλερί λέγεται Rajatila. Νομίζω το λέω σωστά. I think that I pronounce it right. Rajatila. Rajatila. Πήγε λάθος το μάθημα. Και η Ένωση είναι Rajataide. Θα σας το πούν μετά και οι ίδιες για να το καταλάβετε καλύτερα. Το ρόλο και τη σχέση των καλλιτεχνών και της κοινωνίας είναι αυτό που σίγουρα διερευνά η Ένωσή τους που έρχεται από τη Φιλανδία. Η Ένωση Νέων Καλλιτεχνών διατηρεί μια γκαλερί σύγχρονης τέχνης στο Τάμπερε της Φιλανδίας και έχει ήδη προχωρήσει στη διεξαγωγή όλες αυτές τις ημέρες μιας πυγμομέτρησης με τους ρόλους των καλλιτεχνών αλλά και τις προσδοκίες που η σύγχρονη κοινωνία έχει από αυτούς. Η σφυγμομέτρηση αυτή τελείωσε χθες, 18 Μαΐου, μία μέρα πριν τελειώσει η Art-Athina, στις 6 ώρα το απόγευμα και έχουμε εδώ πέρα τις ίδιες για να μας μιλήσουν για τα αποτελέσματα της σφυγμομέτρησης αυτής. Είχα κανονίσει να το πω και στα αγγλικά. Είχα τη βοήθεια ανθρώπου που μου είχε μεταφράσει το κείμενο αυτό στα αγγλικά. Δεν θα τολμήσω να το κάνω, θα αφήσω να μας τα πούν οι ίδιες κατευθείαν, οπότε μπορούμε να συνεχίσουμε.
Hello, everybody. My name is Veera Arjoma, and I present Rajatila Gallery, Rajataide Association. We are from Finland, and this is Mia Saharla, also from Rajataide Association. And we are artists. Rajataide Association is art association situated in Tampere, Finland. It is kind of the second largest city in Finland, southern Finland, and we have a special organizational structure there because only members under 36 years are they have the right to make decisions in our organization. And after that, the members are kicked out. So it's quite useful art organization. And most of us are professional artists. There's also members who are kind of say art lovers or what. Yeah, like just want to promote art in the city of Tampere or in Finland. And just recently we started to taking part in art fairs, like in Nordic Scandinavian countries, and now here in Art-Athina. Since we are a non-commercial gallery and non-commercial organization of artists, we tend to think about why are we taking part into this art fair that is commercial, basically. So, and we also are very interested in this environment of artists today. What is the role of an artist in today's society? And this is why we made an inquiry of the opinions of our Rajataide members and here partakers of Art-Athina. What do they think about the artist's role? And the focus in these questions it was how the institutions affect, how they think institutions affect the artist's role today. And the questions, they were based on, I'm also an artist, and also I've been studying social sciences in Tampere University, and I've been studying, researching a bit art politics in Finland. So the questions are based on that material that I'm kind of found there. So I hope we are not boring you with our questions and this what we found. We just got the information yesterday. The inquiry finished at 6 o'clock yesterday, and I've had just the last night and today to go through the material. So I'm not like, it's very new, and I'm also wondering about it myself still. But it's clear that there's differences in the answers of Rajataide members in Finland and Art-Athina participants who are mostly from Greece. There was just one person who was from France. So this will present, we're going to compare the results. So it will present also the difference between Southern Europe and Northern Europe situation of an artist. And Mia here, she will now read what the answers, how the people who participated this inquiry, how they, in their own words, describe the role of an artist in the contemporary society today. And these are from Art-Athina, these answers. Please, Mia.
So thank you, Vera. Artist number 1, Greece. In Greece, the artist's role is non-existing. Artist number 2, Greece. No matter what I think, artists reflect the society, and that is very important. Artist number 3, Greece. I consider the artist's role to be that of a shaman, the one that travels to other dimensions through ancient spiritual techniques and creates artwork based on that knowledge. A researcher of the spirit in a society that blindly believes in a materialistic determinism. Artist number 4, Greece. Very few artists have the capacity to have an impact on society through their work, and that is a good thing. Few artists will engage in political art, public art, or deliberately intended to have a stand in social matters. Artists most of the time are individuals dealing with symbols, inherited or their own. They use metaphors and other poetic abstractions. The role of the artist, therefore, is and should be to protect their world of the imagined. The art we are talking about here is the art of the margins. This art has a subtle place in our world. Artist number 5, Greece. Artist's role is to discover the role of civilization today. Art manager or producer number 1 from Greece. If artists were able to produce as naturally as possible, then they would shape society. And then number 1 artist from France. I don't have one opinion. I have several opinions about individualism projects, artists, etc., etc. I'm not interested in forming general opinions about anything. I would rather try to look at each thing as directly as I'm able to.
And now Mia will read some answers from Rajataide members, Finland.
Okay, so
all Rajataide members who took part to this inquiry didn't actually answer in their own words to this. So we just have 3 answers.
So these are the Finnish ones. Artist number 1, Finland. Professional artists working for art markets are producers of high-value commodities, comparable to luxury bags, for example. Then there is a surplus of artists that do art without even realizing that. This part of artistic production is actually more meaningful for the majority of people. Artist number 2, Finland. Artists are isolated. The artist should be more involved in the questions of a welfare society. Artist number 3, Finland. I guess the role of an artist in contemporary society varies within the different contexts of art. Some are producing the high-quality contemporary art that is marketed and sold for high prices. Some work more as welfare workers, creating communal projects and touching the social phenomena, or using art as a therapy form for institutions. I guess all of these roles are needed and they all have their place.
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
As you might have noticed, there's some differences could be seen between Rajataide and Art-Athina. And one thing, at least, there strikes in my eye is that Rajataide members from Finland, they talk about welfare society that does increase. In Art-Athina, people don't think about it in their answers. So now I'm going to present you the questions and some statistical material we got from them. This is quite simple statistics, but it's not really. I think it's quite easy to understand. This project was named Artist's Ears something. And we tried to figure out the artist's role. And the attempt was to map out the impact of institutions on artists and art practices, and to compare the environment of artists in Finland and here in Greece of the Art-Athina participants, and also to create some discussion about the artist's role. The same questions were for both groups and presented, and because I'm from Finland, there could be that there's not all the questions are not right for the situation of Greece. Like, I think there's some interesting question missing, like the what is the impact of art collectors, because it's their impact or role in Finnish art world is probably not as big as in here. And as you can see, most of the people who answered the questions, they are professional artists. And the questions there, they were sectioned like concerning the impact of nation state, the state, art world, business companies, religion, and then there's questions that try to figure out the artist's opinion, their self. And one first question was, in your opinion, does the nation state where you have been living in past 12 months somehow regulate artists' work today by some laws, for example? And the figure on the left is Art-Athina, and the figure on the right, it's Rajataide in Finland. And it looks like the Finnish artists, they think that the state regulates, controls art more and art practices than artists here. And this is, I think, is very interesting. And I don't have direct answer for this right now. But we know that there's actually the freedom of speech in the Constitution of Finland. It guarantees the freedom of artistic expression also. But we know that there's some situations where some artworks, they have been censored, but that's because of some other laws, that they have been breaking some other laws. So this could be why Finnish artists think that the state is. But I don't know why people here think so much that the state doesn't affect or control art. Okay, does the nation state, where you have been living for 12 months lately, does it advance the arts by funding? And 45% of Art-Athina thinks that not at all, while most of Rajataide members, they think a little or moderately. So it seems like in Finland, the state is funding more art practices, and I guess that's how it really is, also. But then the overall impact of the nation state, Art-Athina thinks that it's moderately, state is somewhat affecting art, an artist's life, while Rajataide think it's actually quite strong, the impact. But because I don't know the situation in Greece, I don't know why artists think that the state is affecting art, but not regulating it or advancing it. So this has to be some other way, indirect way of state affecting art. This shows the difference between Finland and Greece. That in Art-Athina, artists think that the welfare art is not seen as welfare products, or artists could be seen as welfare service producers, while in Finland, artists think that a little bit, or some even answer that very much. Now we go to the impact of the art world in Finland, and does the art criticism affect the situation of artists? And Art-Athina, the artists think that very much, mostly, while in Rajataide they think that maybe moderately. The impact is not as great. Nobody thinks that very much. And I know that maybe there is not that much art criticism being published in our country. So that's probably why. What do artists think about the important opinions of curators or museum professionals, how it affects an artist's career? Art-Athina thinks like the most common answer is not at all, while Rajataide thinks a lot. Okay, some of our Art-Athina participants think that it's very important. But there's like so many answers that not at all. And this is very interesting also from my perspective. And what about the other artists' opinions on the artist's career? And Art-Athina thinks that not at all, while Rajataide thinks a little to a lot. So in Finland, other artists could be considering more about the opinions of other artists while making their art than increase. What about the opinion of regular audience or public? Does it affect artist works today? Art-Athina thinks the most common answer is a lot, quite much actually, while in Finland it's moderately. So probably Greek artists want to participate more with some common discussions, or I don't know. And also there's a question about how much importance to an artist's career is that art history and its art history's narratives that they are seen in the artist's work. And in Art-Athina, people think that it's not the most common answer, and it's not at all important art history on. While in Finland, they think it's moderately. Well, there's also some in Art-Athina thinking that it's very important, but they're not as dependent maybe on this art history. And also it looks like in Rajataide in Finland, artists think that the art trends in art are quite important to follow them, or someone being knowledgeable of them if you want to have success as an artist. So one question was that, are artists seen as producers of future art history? And it looks like here in Greece, artists think that more that the artists are seen as producers of art history than in Finland. And the importance of gallerists' opinions for artists, it's Art-Athina, it's moderately important, while in Finland it's a little important or moderately important, not as important as in Greece. But in Greece, artists think that one doesn't need to think about what is a bestseller art on the art markets. While in Finland, they think about it a little bit more. One question was, are artists seen as producers of aesthetic commodities, aesthetic products that can be sold or somehow used by members of society? And I think both think that quite a lot. Although Rajataide is in Finland, they think that it's much more important maybe, because quite many also answer that it's like very much important thing how artists are seen. And local businesses, they don't impact so much on artwork. Maybe it's not seen so that important. International companies, maybe the same. It's well, moderately somewhat important. It looks like could be that in Greece companies are financing art more, and I guess it could be because in Finland it's more the state also finances art practices, and artists are not that happy or keen to try to get some sponsors from companies. Are artists seen as producers of objects of investment? And this is also tells that there's difference. In Art-Athina, Greece, artists think that it's this very important thing, while in Rajataide it's seen that it's just minor, mostly minors, while some think that it could be very important and something that's not important at all, so there's much more variety. While all answers in Art-Athina, they are like moderately to a lot. So this also makes the difference between Art-Athina, Greece, and Rajataide, Finland. So here it's more, art is more of an object of investment. And what about religion? There's a lot of variety in these answers, so I guess it's also dependent on what artists are interested themselves. The same here, it's art is not seen as spiritual, religious objects, mostly not. Then the artist image in the public. Artists think that some artists have a celebrity status, and sometimes artists are seen as mythical beings by the public. Art-Athina thinks quite a lot, and and this was also interesting because to compare this, like, are artists seen as mythical beings or professionals? And they're quite contradictional. So artists are seen moderately, somewhat, as professionals. And the relationship between artist and the artwork is seen quite strong, both in Greece and in Finland. Okay, we go to the opinions how the artistic content should be. Should artists express oneself through art? And the most common answer in Art-Athina is very much, 70%, very much. While in Rajataide it's a lot, or too very much. It's like, it seems like artists don't want to think, maybe in Finland, that their work is that individualistic, although maybe our society structure we are more individualistic society, maybe, because the importance of family usually is, or local communities. That's said that in Greece it's more important, and Scandinavian countries, they're more individualistic. But here it shows that artists in Finland, they think that they shouldn't be in artist expression. It shouldn't be only their individualistic expression. Should artists express social ideas through art? And Art-Athina thinks very much, while Rajataide moderates to very much. Like, and this is, I find it quite contradictional that the Greece artists in Art-Athina think that they should express themselves, but also express social ideas. So, to my thinking, that's kind of contradictional. Oh, there was this, should artists make political statements about art? And it was also very much preferred. Okay, the slide just went away. But it was also both in Art-Athina and Rajataide very much preferred, although in Art-Athina it was more popular thing than to wish from art. should artists make statements about art through art? Art-Athina answers this very much, while Rajataide is more moderate with this thing. Art is not necessarily need to make statements about art. Okay, so this was it. I hope you can.
I know that it's quite difficult to see all these numbers and understand them, but I don't know if you have any question for our friend from Finland. I would like to ask something. I don't know if it's the last question, but except the numbers, can you tell me, please, what was your thought about before you came to Greece, about the Greek art and the Greek artists, and what you found when you came here and you see the whole exhibition?
My own expression?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know Greek contemporary artists. Not very much. I didn't know a lot about it, and so this was an opening experience to come here. So now I know about it more, and I can see that there's going on different discussions, different things. The scene is very different from Finland, and gets the importance of commercial galleries and art making is probably bigger. Here in Greece, I guess so. Of course, we have commercial art galleries that are functioning in the art markets, but I think this this topic is here more visible.
What is your next stop after Athens? Where are you going to do the next pole?
Pole, I don't know.
So was it useful for your team?
Yeah, it was. It was very useful, and it's very interesting. And because, well, this is not the proper scientific polling, but it would be interesting to make one, because it's actually, it could tell a lot about the societies and the situation of artists and culture and how art is being produced, and actually tells that the artist's role, it's different from in different societies, also in Europe.
If you draw some conclusions from this survey,
yeah. Well,
okay.
Well, there was conclusions was that the welfare society, the concept of welfare society it's more important to Finnish artists than in Finland, in Scandinavia, than here. And also the state is probably intervening by funding art more to art practices, and that's why artists think about it more, that it's affecting more. Although Greek artists think that state is somehow, not directly, but indirectly affecting. But this welfare society's concept, it's clear that it's the biggest difference. And the other one is that I think that the art worlds are different too. That the one question that was missing was the importance of collectors, art collectors, because Greece artists, they think that much more that the art is seen as object of investment also than Finnish artists. They don't think about it that much. And also one interesting thing was that while Greece artists think that art critique is important for success of an artist, Finnish artists don't think that. They think it's more important maybe the curators, the opinions curators, or museum staff, and other artists. And and also that art should somehow, the art trends in the art world, that they are more important to Finnish artists than artists in Greece. These are the main conclusions I could so far.
So the conclusion you would draw from the Greek market, what would you say would be the important thing a Greek considers?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that well. Can you repeat, please?
Yes. What I'm saying is, my question is, what does a Greek consider important?
It's self-expression, I guess.
Self-expression.
It was more important
I see.
than to Finnish artists. And I was thinking, why is that? Is it that Finnish people see it very individualistic way, the self-expression, while Greece might think that self-expression is also expressing social ideas, expressing political ideas, taking part somehow.
You mentioned,
Yeah.
you mentioned, and somehow it was a little bit hazy, you know.
Yeah.
And,
I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, from my part,
Yeah.
I didn't get it very clear, you know. I find some answers that they gave were contradictory.
Yeah.
Is that true? You
I
found
think
it true?
there is something, some could be seen as contradictory, but also that there's some, like when Greek artists think that that state doesn't regulate the art at all, they think that state is somehow affecting art. So this is, I don't know why, and it must be an indirect, not direct way of affecting, but it has to be some indirect way. It's not through laws or not through funding of art.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The microphone. Do you have any questions? All right. Θα ήθελα να σας ευχαριστήσω όλους εκ μέρους της Artemis Ποταμιάνου πρωτίστως που οργάνωσε το Platform Project, αλλά και εγώ προσωπικά, γιατί μας κάνατε και ήσταν και τις 2 μέρες εδώ πέρα. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.